face, no label. And I'm just here to do a little sharing today. Normally you see races or some type of tooling, but as you see, I don't even have a car out or nothing, just sitting at the desk right now. But this video is due to a request, and I always said if anybody want to know anything that I know, I'm willing to share. You ask me in the comments, or try to answer in the comments, or if not, like in this case, I'm going to do a video. But I was asked, how do I run my races? Because they a couple of people have asked me because they would like to, try to store something in their area. So I guess first thing mainly is you need to find some people that's going to be dedicated just like you are, or it won't work. So you're going to have to build your little community unless you already have. So I'm just talking for those who thinking about it and hadn't even started step one. Step one is just build your community, and that's as simple as just going somewhere with your car and just racing. You're racing the right spot. Eventually somebody's going to stop and say, hey, what's that? And how courteous you are at that moment as a person in the hobby will decide if you bring somebody else in. Well, if you get enough dedicated people, then that's when you'll begin to want to do these races. So first of all, build your community. Okay, now the first thing I did, because when we started, it was only 5 of us, and I called that group now the Hand. But we started out with a top 10 race because we had enough cars between us that we went by the cars. So we had a top 10 race, and some of us had 2 cars, so you get the picture. And the way we did that, we started out, we pulled random numbers, and 1 had to race 1, 2 had to race 2, until we raced all the way down to the last man standing. And that's how we began the top 10 list. And then the person that was number 1, to take them down, you had to wait till next week. And then we would bracket, I think we bracket raced that first time. And we would do it by bracket racing. And that's just like if you watch March Madness, or let me see what's something else that uses brackets. Just a tournament style bracket where you got two opponents, they fight out and meet, and the winners advance. So you do that until you down to the last car. We did a tournament style bracket for the top 10 races. And so what eventually ended up happening is more people started showing up, more people started seeing it, and the weather was perfect enough to where we had 10 people. Then we had more people to show up, and then those people wanted to race. And I know what it feels like to buy a car and you want to get out there and you want to run your car, you want to race, you see all this, you don't want to have to go through a whole lot just to run your car. So what I decided was I went to a top 25. Then it grew, and to the point where I had a top 50 car. If you go back further in the channel, somewhere down in there, you'll find it. But it really was a 50 car list. And the way we done the 50 car list, okay, it was different than the bracket style. With the 50 car list, you had to call your way up. So you couldn't automatically just come up and race the number 1 racer. 50 had to beat 49, then 49 had to beat 48, and so forth up the ladder until you can make it to the number 1 spot and defend it. And so after that happened, it got so crazy that I decided to cut the list back down. And when I cut the list back down, what I changed to then was a top 25 car with a pool race. Now the pool race, if y'all still with me, the pool race was a bracket style setup for anybody that didn't make the top 25 and anybody that was new coming that week. So you all had to go in the pool and you would have to race tournament bracket style, and the winner of that got to race the gatekeeper, which would be number 25. If he beat the gatekeeper, then he would get to take 25's place, and 25 went into the pool and had to wait till next week. Excuse me. And had to wait till next week before they could race. So, after so long, if you watch anything like Street Outlaws or any kind of street racing, people learn the system and they try to work it. And when you got 25 plus cars, people are in a rush to get to the top, and some people aren't. So I had a lot of complaints, so I changed the following season into King of the Callouts. And the way that worked was you could call out anybody you wanted to race that was there that day. If you beat that person, you got a point. If they beat you, they got the point. But once that race is over that weekend, that person is no longer worth any points. Or you can't try to get your point back. Y'all could grudge race, but you couldn't get your point back. So that way, people would have to go and say, hey, I want to race you. I want to race you. I want to race you, instead of sitting back. So it made it where you had to actually go and say, I want to race. And nobody could, as they would say, bogart a spot. Because if you sit still, then your points sit still. So we had the King of the Call Out, the point race system. I hope you understood that. So now we're currently doing the bracket style, which is the simplest. And we have a belt. And so every week, everybody that show up goes in the bracket. We race through the bracket. Winner of the bracket gets the belt. Okay, the following race after that, the next weekend or so, when we run the races again, it's finna storm. When we run the races again, whoever has the belt will keep the belt until they either win it again all the way through, or until they're beaten. Once they're beaten, whoever beat them grabs the belt all the way till we at the end of the bracket. So if that person takes the belt and win out, he keeps the belt. Or to the point where whoever wins out on the bracket. I hope I am not sounding confusing, but I'm just trying to be of a help. Now, the last and the final race tip I got to give is the tag team race that we're about to start. And the way the tag team race works is normally 2 people, and you race 2 other people, and the teams that are going against each other, it's a 3 race round. One of each team has to race the first. One races the first, another one races the other. You can't have one person race all 3 races. So it's set up to where both of you race, and then the third race is up if it has to be a third race, because if you win the first 2, it's over. It's best out of 3. But if it's a tie and it's 1-1, then the third race is upon the team who you choose to run. Now, in the case that I have coming up, some people wanted to know, well, can I have 2 cars and I just be a team? So I'll let that be your decision as who running your races. But in my case, I've decided that a tag team will be now cars instead of the people. So if one person come up, as long as they got 2 cars that they're gonna split the races among in the 3 rounds, that works. So that's the tag team. And then you got your simple, which is one of my favorite, which is just team versus, when it's your whole squad versus a whole nother squad. neighborhood versus neighborhood, however you want to put it. And you basically just match up your races and come to an agreement before your races with the other team of what type of rules you guys want to run. You know, if you're gonna have outside lanes, if it's chases a race, all that good stuff. So you know, the verses is pretty fun. I like that too. But basically, the more you start to race and run them, you'll come up with your own ideas, because sometimes doing the same thing over and over gets bored. So you got to come up with a way to make it different. I mean, when we did the points race, we actually had trophies that I gave out instead of a belt and a couple of medals. I mean, you know, you just try to find different ways to make it interesting. And if you got a competitive team like I have, you know, they're gonna come, they're gonna bring it. Just create the community for them, man. Just make a place. I know it seems like work, but you know, you want to do it bad enough, you'll find a way. I know sometimes the hardest thing is just finding a spot to race. I will advise, wherever you pick to race, hopefully you can find a place where there's enough room for people who are new to the hobby, or people that believe that they're veterans in the hobby but still haven't learned to control their cars well. There are points where, you know, a car can go out of control at any moment, and if there's curbs there, you know, depending on how fast you're going is how much your bill gonna be when you hit that curb. So you want to try to race somewhere where you got plenty of room if you can, no curbs if you can, and always make non-racers. And this is hard to do sometimes. Make non-racers get behind the starting line or to the side of the safe areas that you designate. And I would advise you to designate enough space where if they run hard left or hard right, you can see it coming and then get out the way, hopefully. And if you want to see how I do mine, just go back through some of the channels. You can see I always try to keep a safe distance for everybody, because sometimes you're going to have just people attending. So you want them to be able to enjoy and be safe too, because believe it or not, if you're running the races and someone gets hurt, if they decide to try to get a lawyer and say, hey, I was there watching these guys' races and their car broke my ankle, guess what? You now liable. So, you know, in my case, I had to be insured to race at the places I raced at. So, you know, there's a lot of other things that can come into play, but it's all about where you race. And for me, I want to make sure I keep a place that's consistent and safe. And so for me to do that, it took me getting some insurance to cover my races. But I see nothing wrong with that, because it is good to be covered in case of an emergency. All right, so I'm not going to ramble on. Hopefully I can do enough edits in this and cuts that I won't bore you to death and help you guys out. And stay tuned for more new content. So until you see me again, don't get mad, get faster. All right, peace.